Please tell me you got the ability to edit this later.
Oh, for sure. It won't be ours. It'll be good people's editing.
They told us to just, use all the film we could. Well, they don't call it film anymore. What do they
All
call
the memory
Yeah.
card
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
it? So,
Yeah, we start dating ourselves when we start talking about videotape.
yeah, exactly. So, can
Cool.
you say and spell your name?
Same age model.
Occasionally. Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, I enjoyed the days where somebody took you out and taught you the airplane. You didn't have to be taught the avionics because it didn't matter what name was written on it. All of them worked the same.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't care about what the airplane is. Teach me the avionics. Okay.
My, how it's changed.
Yeah. Of course, we used to shoot NDB approaches when the first Garmin, was it Garmin or no, Lowrance or Apollo, who came out with that, had the Fly Buddy or whatever it was, Loran, when they come out with the GPS slide-in replacement, oh man, we were good with that. We'd go into our home base, this 700-foot NDB approach minimums. We'd get DC-3s in there on a 3,000-foot strip at 300 feet.
I've seen the volume thing. I hear airplane.
I still have another 18 story that'd be good. Going into Hartsfield with it. They had sent me in the Twin Beach and another guy in a 58 Baron. He took off in front of me. He's 30 knots faster. I get up there, we're both supposed to be on the same runway, it's VFR. Atlanta had 2 runways side by side, one for landing, one for takeoff, then one for takeoff, one for landing. Well, we're both lined up on this north runway. He's somehow got this Baron slowed up so much, I'm eating him up in a Twin Beach at approach speed. I'm doing this behind him. And ATC asked me, hey, 552 Alpha, can you accept the inboard? Yeah. I'm like 600 feet off the ground. I racked it over, got it lined up that runway. I come across the end of the runway in probably a 45-degree bank, and there's DC-9 sitting there waiting to take off. He got a good look at the bottom of Beach 18 as I went by. But it just wild stuff like that went on. That like I say, it is all fun. It was a great time in aviation. The old guy that I worked for, a guy named Bob McSwiggan, in my mind, he really hit it right. He told me one time, all of romance went out of aviation with the jet age. All the romance was in the round engines. But he was a great guy. That unfortunately Alzheimer's about to take him, but what a great guy.
Well, he's absolutely right.
Yeah. Let's see.
Can you tell me the one about the wingtip again?
Okay, that we were coming from Grand Rapids, supposed to be going down to Asheville, North Carolina, late one night, and we loaded up, take off on a VFR flight following, and we were talking. Oh, also the Mode C wasn't working on the airplane, so they'd ask report altitude. They were flying along, nothing out of the ordinary, and we're flying along, and all of a sudden, the airplane just snaps over, rolls over into a steep spiral. And of course, when it does, I'm running off the rear auxes, and it had the pressure carbs on it. So you know what happens when the fuel pressure does this in a pressure carb airplane? The engines quit. Exactly. So as I'm coming over, both engines quit. So I'm struggling to get fuel selectors changed and try to right this airplane. And anyway, I get this thing, and it doesn't matter. Stop to stop, just made no difference. That I'm just spiraling down, end up losing 4,000 feet of altitude. And finally I get control of the airplane. And of course I'm holding the yoke about like this, and 2/3 rudder to make it fly straight. And of course now we're indicating 115 knots in the airplane, ought to be indicating 145. And so start looking around and look out the right side window and look out across the black of the wing that's out to the outboard side of the engine and a white wing panel. Then there's supposed to be a black wingtip out there. It's not there anymore. There's a little bit of the bottom skin still left of this fiberglass tip, and it's folded up against the tip rib of the wing, and looks like a little winglet out there. So about the time I get everything really situated, figure out where I'm at, and ATC calls me up with a frequency change. So I just acknowledge him, checking with the new controller at the lower altitude. He doesn't question it. So I call him back, hey, 5BA here. We got a little problem. I'd like to head towards the nearest airport. Well, he comes back after a little bit. Well, I forget the name of the airport he's trying to send us to. We figure out some little podunk airport and no facilities, 3,000 feet. He's like, nah, we want a real airport. So he comes back after a little bit. Well, we got Port Columbus at such and such in 50 miles. Fine, point me at it. He comes back, well, 5BA, what's the nature of your problem? Well, I didn't really want to admit nothing over the radio, that don't know who all's listening. So I just told him, look, just something feels strange. I want to land and check it out. So anyway, I get headed towards Columbus, and I'm thinking, okay. And I start slowing this airplane down. What's going to happen? Is it going to roll over on me? Am I going to have enough control to keep it from rolling over on me? Didn't like my answer, so about 45, 50 miles out, I start slowing the airplane down a little bit at a time. Nothing's changing. Okay, slow it down a little more. Nothing changing. Okay, I think we're going to be okay here. So I slow it down. They asked me, do you want emergency equipment out? At that time, I think I'd had like 12 engine failures. I had young, dumb, and stupid, never did care to have emergency equipment out. And I'm thinking to myself, this is probably a good time to have it. So yeah, I put them out there. So anyway, I come down, land this airplane. I'd been in the beach so much that it was just second nature to me. And that was one of the things that really drove me nuts during the spin, because I felt the beach was just an extension of me, and now it wouldn't listen to anything I was doing. And that really was a bizarre feeling to me. But anyway, I get back and I land in the airplane. As soon as we touch down, I'm watching these guys. I could keep it on the runway, it's so comfortable at the beach, but I'm watching these emergency trucks down. You see them squinting real hard at the airplane. All of a sudden their eyes get this big when they realize that wingtip's gone. We taxi in, and they call the, well, I'm shutting it down, and just before I shut down the radios, ground control calls me up and says, hey, when you get everything taken care of, the FAA's on the phone for you up in Lane Aviation. All right, I'll be up there in a little while. So I get the airplane put to bed, get the freight down to the door, and have it ready for whatever airplane's gonna come pick it up, because I knew I wasn't going any further. And so anyway, I go up in Lane's office, and I get on the phone with the FAA, and they start asking, well, they ask for the story, I kind of tell them. They said, well, you think you hit something? No, I didn't hit anything. I would have felt a thump or something. It just all of a sudden snapped. And so as I'm really getting into the story with them, I started out talking as calm as with you guys. And by the time I'm getting towards the end of the story, my hands are shaking. I can't hardly talk from my voice quivering. And I guess it's real that maybe the shock's wearing off a little bit and realizing what happened. And but what was really strange, I started my own freight company, or actually charter company, several years later, and I had to pull my own report from the FAA on me as a pilot for my company. And I looked through this accident report or incident report, whatever they listed it as. 2/3 of the information in it was wrong that I'd given them. Not that I'd given them, but what I'd told them was not what they wrote down in the incident. But
well, tell me about what happened 6 weeks later at that same airport.
Well, that was in a DC-3.
Right.
That was going into Columbus, Ohio. I was actually supposed to go there. And it's 100.5 day. And so anyway, 100.5 day. And controller asked me, okay, how much can you slow the airplane up? I'm thinking to myself, what's out here slower than me on 100.5 day? And I asked the controller, what's out here that's slower than me on 100.5 day? He says, I know. It's a 172 doing a practice approach. He's doing 60 across the ground. What can you give me? That's what 85 knots indicated is the least I can give you. 84 is VMC. So I slow it down to 85 knots. I'm coming down the ILS, and about a mile outside the mark, it's like boom! We see fire fly out in front of the left side of the airplane. I look, it's coming out the intake, and the engine's now shaking hard. So I have to shut down the engine at not above VMC, fly this thing down 100.5 minimums, and all this raw data, NAS instruments that are peeling the paint off of them, and the whiskey barrel DGs, and fighting this thing down. As I taxi in, well, I get it on the ground, I taxi in on single engine, I get it there, I park it, ramp guy comes out. I open up my window and he sees all the oil dripping off the engine. I'm like, man, what a mess. Wait, you're the guy that was in the Beech 18 last month. Yeah, that was me. You may not want this part in there, but I walk inside the FBO and Chuck Yeager's inside. Just me and him. I walk in, recognize who he is. Of course, I'm in dirty freight dog clothes. I'm like, well, hi, how are you, Mr. Yeager? He grunted and walked away from me. That was my meeting with Chuck Yeager.
I'll tell you about mine after you take that microphone. So, Rick Ward, can you spell your name for the camera so that the editing lady doesn't get it wrong?
RICKWARD.
Perfect.
My parents knew I couldn't handle anything complicated.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.